While you were sleeping, we entered Globalization 3.0 from the year 2000 to the present. And it's shrinking the world from size small to size tiny and flattening the global economic playing field at the same time. Only what is really new, really exciting, really terrifying about this era of globalization is it's not built around countries. It's not built anymore exclusively around companies. No, what's really new, really exciting, really terrifying, and wholly unprecedented is that this era of globalization is built around individuals. When I say the world is flat, I don't mean we're equal. I mean that we have created a platform, this flat world platform, on which more people can enter every day, more individuals from which they can share knowledge, work, entertainment, information, business, innovation.
But what happened before that?
Well, globalization has been present in multiple major events in the past 200 years, such as the Industrial Revolution, rise of nationalism, imperialism, and the Great War. These events either contributed or hindered the building of globalization to shrink the world, in the words of Thomas Friedman, from medium to small. Jack Welch once said, "Globalization has changed us into a company that searches the world, not just to sell or to source, but to find intellectual capital, the world's best talents and greatest ideas." Globalization describes a process by which regional companies, societies, and cultures have become integrated through a globe-spanning network of communication and trade. The Industrial Revolution was an enormous contributor to globalization. The revolution started in the 18th century and ended in the 19th century. It created major change in agriculture, mining, manufacturing, and transportation in different nations. During this time, machines had taken over the idea of manual labor. From the Industrial Revolution came a steam engine and locomotives, which were revolutionary inventions that would make transportation a lot easier. Locomotives could transport goods halfway around the world. Samuel F. B. Morse created the telegraph, which enabled an opportunity of easy communication. Social changes in economies were greatly affected by the revolution. The social changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution were significant, as in economic activities, many communities moved from agriculture to manufacturing production, shifted from its traditional locations in the home and the small workshop to factories. This time was the initial spark of globalization that would ultimately spread farther and farther. In different nations, a sense of pride had arisen. Nations had become more patriotic and began to believe that their nation was better than any other. This would later be called nationalism. Nationalism could be perceived as an event that hindered the process of globalization because of the self-absorbency of each nation, but actually it did the exact opposite. Johann Gottlieb Fichte expresses in To the German Nation, "The first, original, and truly natural boundaries of states are beyond doubt their internal boundaries. Those who speak the same language are joined to each other by a multitude of invisible bonds by nature herself." From nationalism came the thought that in order to be the best, we need to have the best. In order to have the best, different nations began to claim land in other continents, such as India and Africa. This was called imperialism. Imperialism is defined as the seizure of a country or territory by another country. Through this, a hushed competition had begun. The nations established the Berlin Conference that laid down the rules for the division of Africa. 14 European countries were in attendance. This time allowed the European countries to have tabs on each other, making them more aware about the nations around them, thus being a contributor to globalization. Not only was the land being claimed, making the world change in that way, but also countries were changing internally. During the Great War, nations began to improve their military. Each nation wanted the strongest army if anyone were to attack. This became an essential part of globalization. The playing field was beginning to be flattened. From this idea, nations began forming alliances with one another. This would ultimately connect nations like never before. nations would have to rely on each other. For example, if Austria and Serbia were to go to war, then Russia, Germany, Italy, France, and Britain were also involved. The Great War basically created a flattened playground for the world. So what is globalization today?
Globalization is connection.
Globalization is new and inventive.
Globalization is the future.
Globalization is modern.
There was a time when my world was filled with darkness, darkness, darkness.